So to celebrate the month of SEPTANDY 2019, I decided to go ahead and break out this Tandy 1000 SX that I recently picked up at the same yard sale that I picked up a VIC-20 computer, which I just did a video for. If you're interested, I'll create a card for that, and you can click on that link and check that out. But in the same yard sale, she happened to be selling this Tandy, which I picked up for about $100. I got a monochrome Samsung monitor, the Tandy SX1000 with the manual, the MS-DOS manual, and the basic reference manual. So in any event, I thought it might be good to go ahead and do a video of how I cleaned it up and restored it and got it into its working order. So without further ado, let's go ahead and take a look at the Tandy SX1000, one of the best MS-DOS computers at the time of its release. So the Tandy 1000 SX is the follow-up to the Tandy 1000 series of computers, and it was retail $11.99, which is a good price at the time for the amount of power that you got, the amount of features that you got built into the computer. It was an Intel 8088 CPU with dual speed. It could be changed from 4.77 MHz to 7.16 MHz, which was a lot faster than most at the time. It came with 384K but was expandable to 640K, printer ports, light pen port, RGB video port, a composite video, and a mono audio. And it came with two built-in 5¼ floppies, slimline floppies that were double-sided. So in other words, this machine was power-packed without adding very many add-on cards. It had a CGA graphics video adapter built into it, 640K RAM, and it was ahead of a lot of the other IBM clones at the time. Well, let's go ahead and turn on the monitor, adjust the brightness and contrast all the way, and let's see if we can get the computer to start up and give us any type of life signals. Well, there goes our memory size equals to 640K, so that's a good sign. And there's our BIOS screen, Phoenix software, 1984, 85, and 86, so we know the computer is booting the BIOS ROM. The computer is also cycling between the two 5¼ floppies, so I know that they're at least getting power and working. So what we'll probably do next is we'll go ahead and take the computer apart and take a look at the insides of it, clean it up, kind of make sure there's nothing abnormally wrong visually, and then we'll take a look at how we can get a boot disk ready for it. So we'll start by removing the 3 screws on the back of the computer case. That will take us to the front of the computer where we have 2 screws on the front bezel. So let's take a quick look inside the computer and just kind of identify some of the components on the motherboard. An 8087 math coprocessor can be purchased and installed to increase the speed of math computations. As you can see here, the 1000 SX has a total of 5 expansion ports for add-on cards, and the 5th expansion port right now happens to have the 1200 baud modem card installed in it already. The 1000 SX also has a pretty beefy power supply from the factory. The 1000 SX was also one of the first PC clones to have a built-in quote chipset. The 840684 contained the glue logic, the disk controller, and other necessary functions all built into one chip. Right here we can see the main CPU, the Intel 8088 processor. Right next to the processor is the open slot for the optional 8087 math coprocessor, which is used to speed up math computations. Here you can see the 5 expansion slots. And since most of the functionality for the computer was built on board, these slots are free. This small potentiometer actually controls the volume of the speaker. Here you can see a view of the RAM chips. You see the ones that are kind of brown on the top? Those were the original 384 before it was expanded to 640K. Here's a view of the rear of the 5¼ inch floppies. TAC model FD-55BV-75-U. Here are the two 5¼ inch floppies from the front, along with a view of the PC speaker. 2 joystick ports compatible with all Tandy joysticks, a keyboard port, and a master reset switch. Here's a view of the Tandy keyboard. The keyboard had 3 special function keys. The first one took it to mono mode, tells the computer to operate in monochrome video mode instead of the normal color mode. The F2 tells it to operate in TV mode instead of the normal colored graphics video mode. 3 swaps your drives, so the primary drive becomes B and B becomes the primary. And the F4 changes the speed of the computer between 4.77 MHz and 7.16 MHz. Also featured is the Tandy infamous hold button, which will actually freeze the computer, and you press it again to unfreeze the computer, almost like a pause button. So outside we go for a quick blast from some compressed air to get the years of dust that have built up inside and outside the case off, and we can take it back inside and clean the plastics up. Well, I think it cleaned up pretty good. What do you think? Not too bad for some basic cleaning. So now that we've got the computer cleaned up, let me show you something that I ordered specifically for this machine to bring it into 21st century. This right here, guys, is the low-tech XT-CF-lite PC card that allows you to use a compact flash card in an older style PC like this Tandy SX1000. And I happened to order this from techselect.com. I highly recommend you check them out. And they actually went ahead and pre-formatted the compact flash card for me and installed MS-DOS 6.22. So that's a nice little service they offer, and I think it was about 60 bucks for this card and the compact flash memory card as well. So there's some jumpers here. You can select your ROM address, your input-output port, and whether the ROM is enabled or not. So let's go ahead and pop the flash card in there, put the card in the PC, and let's boot it up and see what happens. Let's see if we actually can boot into this compact flash card as a C drive. I'll be sure to provide a link in the description of this video on where you can order this PC card and the compact flash to go with it. So again, what's nice about the 1000 SX is there's plenty of available expansion ports in order to add boards like this card in order to improve the functionality of the computer. So we'll just pick a slot, put the board in, and be ready to go. Alright, so we're booting the computer up. There's our memory, 640K. Let's see if this guy recognizes that compact flash. And there we go. You can see the XT-IDE Universal BIOS that's coming off of the card. Starting MS-DOS. Looks like it tried to load the high mem driver and failed for whatever reason. We'll look at that. But there we go. We got our directory of DOS. We got our command com, our DOS directory. Looks like it's taking a little bit longer to count the number of free bytes on the drive due to this being a 1 gigabyte size flash card. But I think I read somewhere else in another video that that's pretty common. Actually, it's 512 megs, I think, is what I had it formatted at. But you can see the directory command after that was pretty quick. Let's go ahead and run a check disk and just make sure that everything comes back okay on the disk, which I'm assuming it will. Yep, check disk came back fine. You can see the total bytes free. 533 megabytes available. I think that's a lot of room. I think that's plenty of room for us to store some DOS programs. What do you think? I think we should be fine there, don't you? Let's go ahead and try and run a scan disk and make sure that scan disk reports green light for our drive. Alright, looks like ScanDisk came back with a pass. So that's good. Now we know that our compact flash drive is working as it's supposed to be. Let's go ahead and see if we can format a floppy disk in drive A while writing the system to it. Let's test each drive. We're going to start with drive A and see if we can get a successful format. It seems like drive A is formatting a floppy correctly, but unfortunately we're getting some very strange errors, and I can tell just by the sound of the drive it's kind of making some clackety-clack and some grinding sounds as if it's struggling to move the head along the disk to go track by track. So we might end up having to take this guy out and clean it up, kind of grease it and smooth it out a little bit. Let's see if we have any better luck formatting the B drive. Well, B appeared to format a little better, but it still gave an error writing the system disk files to it. It said the disk is unusable or unsuitable as a system disk, so that's not a good sign either. So I'm going to go ahead and take the drives out and just do a visual inspection on them and see if the drive mechanism is bound up in any way, if the rails need to be lubricated. I'm going to clean the heads on each drive. These are double-sided, double-density drives, which means there's a head on each side of the disk. So I'm going to do that real quick, and then we'll test it again and see if it makes a difference at all. There's 3 screws that hold the drive bay, if you will, or the caddy to the frame. So you have to take those 3 screws out, and the whole caddy will come out. Then you've got to unplug the power connector from each floppy, and also the two-ended ribbon cable, the one that goes to the A and B drive. And it'll come right out as one assembly. So there's a total of 6 screws that are holding the drives in the caddy. There's 4 on one side and 2 on the other. And as soon as you take those out, you'll be able to get each drive out individually. Just make sure you unplug the cables. The actual mechanism that moves the heads back and forth, the rails, it seemed pretty smooth. Didn't seem to be any obstructions for that. So I'm not really sure if there's any issues on that side of things. But we're going to go ahead and clean the heads and see if we can get any dirt, grime, or grease that might have built up over the heads over the years. And I'll go ahead and add a little dry lubricant to the rails, just to make sure that they have what they need to move back and forth smoothly. Now it's very important that you clean both heads, the bottom and the top. You can use a cotton swab for that, and when you go to clean the top head, you can actually bend the tip of the cotton swab upward in order to get reach to get the top head. I'm very carefully adding a little bit of what's called a dry lubricant to each one of the rails, just to give it enough of what it needs to be able to move back and forth smoothly. This dry lubricant is good for not collecting dust. It's kind of like a Teflon coating that it leaves on the rails. So I've used it a lot on repairing floppy drives in the past, and it's always worked out pretty well. So in any event, guys, I put the drives back in and I got almost the same, if not worse, results. So I'm pretty confident that there is definitely something wrong with these drives. Maybe the controller itself, although I don't think so, because I was getting some success and some not success, which to me points more to a mechanical failure than a digital failure. Let's take a look at some printing from the Tandy 1000. I happened to pick up this Epson FX80 printer at a yard sale, and it was actually in pretty good shape. I ordered a ribbon online, an older ribbon, based on the quality that it's printing. But interestingly enough, the printer came with a Tandy cable, and I thought that was pretty cool because I knew that I would be able to test this printer out by plugging it into this Tandy 1000. It's got that card edge connector that goes in the back right there. You can see on the Tandy, the printer port. So I went ahead and plugged it in, turned it on, and I put some paper into it so we can real quickly, for example, we'll print out the directory listing of DOS to the printer, and you'll actually be able to see it print. Now, back in the days, guys, this was state of the art. I can't tell you how much fun I had with my. I actually had an Epson FX80 back in the late 80s, early 90s, and I would print, you know, all kinds of just source code out, directory listings, and all kinds of cool stuff. So they're workhorses, man. I mean, these things will run forever. Here's some printing using Broaderbund Software Print Shop. This was a very popular printing software back in the DOS days. Well, guys, that about wraps it up for this video. I'll come back with another video, a follow-up to this video, where I'll have one or both of those floppy drives working. We'll take a look at some math code processor installation that we can put in there, and you know, we'll load some more games up and some more programs with a color monitor and see what this computer can really do.